They don't even mention that in the book. They're telling me, hey, watch out, there's a hole in the chassis. You gotta slip this in under here first. Hey guys, I'm back at it for build session number 2 of the TLR 22 5.0 DC Elite. When we left off last time, I was trying to decide, do I want to run the front body post or not? I've thought about it for a little while. I think I am going to run a front body post. I've seen many bodies go fly off from just being held on with Velcro, so I'm going to run front and rear body clips like I have done on all my other buggies. So I've got this piece assembled, which was on step D5. This is kind of an interesting piece because it is not symmetrical, so it does have a little kick up on the one side, and it does fit into this block only the one way. Well, it would work both ways, but just make sure you don't put it in the wrong way, because you could put it in with that piece facing down, and you want to make sure you put it in with the curve facing into it so that it's a seamless mesh. As well as this piece is a Stiffenzel piece. The TLRs come with 2 types of plastics, Stiffenzel and normal, and so this one is a Stiffenzel, which means it's the harder, stiffer, more rigid plastic. There we go. Ugly front body mount and all. On to step D7, where you're taking this assembly and plopping it down onto the chassis. I do need to line this up with the steering bell cranks, and then you should feel it press down in. It'll kind of countersink down in when you get it right. So yeah, there it starts to go there. So you can feel it engage. And now I've got to put 2 screws in through the bottom and the 2 in through the top. And these 2 through in the top are the first ones where they're asking to put in thread lock. So this is the included thread locker you get in the kit, and I am going to use it because I figured why not? I'm doing all the rest of it to stock specs. I might as well include what they give. Unlike the greases, this one is sealed, so I do need to cut the tip. It says just a drop, so we'll do just a drop. And the other step to these is that it says you want this to be very free-flowing, so I'm going to try and make sure that it's as loose as possible. Yeah, actually that just a little back it off just a little bit made a big difference. Here we go. You want to make sure your bell cranks are nice and free. Now that this front end is on, we're on to step D8, and this is the first time you get to see some A-arms. So this is installing the front A-arms. They are Stiffenzel pieces that you get. So you get the stiff front arms on the front of the Elite, and the rear arms are going to be the normal plastic. So I'm just going to kind of feel how stiff these are. These do seem very rigid. They are also gull wing style arms. Pretty neat. And I'm also curious to see, once we add the pins in, how free they are. Actually, we can test that right now. I want to see if these arms need any reaming or not. Doesn't seem like it. They seem pretty good. We'll get it on the car, but I don't think they need to be reamed at all. The front end, you're adding this metal hinge pin block, and that's going to go in here. Doesn't seem to matter its orientation, so, well, I mean, left up and down it does, but left and right doesn't. We put that on there. We put an arm on. The arms are left and right, so you have to make sure you put the left on the left side. Get that into position, and you put your pin through. Very nice loose arms. Awesome. No reaming required. Putting the right side on. Beautiful. That's what you want. Super nice loose arms. That's great. Made a mistake, and I'm going to show you these grubs here. I thought that they had them going into this block. I wasn't noticing the lineup. Well, it doesn't go into this hole here. Actually, there's another one where it actually goes in here, and the grub screw goes down into the hinge pin block, and that's what holds this pin from sliding out. There's a groove in the pin in the middle, and the grub screw holds onto that, and that's what stops the pin from coming out. You just want to put this in just enough so that the pin doesn't pull out. While I'm working on this grub screw to hold the hinge pin, I was also advised that I should remove the nub, the body nub, because apparently it does damage the body. It'll rip through the body, probably elongate the hole. Since we have so much surface area here along the side rails, you've got tons of Velcro that you're going to put here. So I think I'm going to do a full Velcro body on this. I should be able to. I'm going to remove this top plate and put the flat part on the front here and put the blank in. After that, we're on to step E, which is making one of the bearing carriers. We have a couple of interesting things going on here in step E1. First of all, these are the front casters or C blocks, and they are a multi-piece design where the actual standoff arm part is a separate piece. The arm itself keys in, and that is a tunable part, as well as these component inputs here. The rear one is a composite and the front one is aluminum. They look almost exactly the same, so that's why it says pay special attention here, is because this aluminum one can be easily misidentified as the composite. It's only a little bit shinier. It's hard to actually tell at first glance which ones are plastic and which ones are aluminum. So these are the aluminum and these ones are the composite. These are both tunable items according to this side of the page here. This is all the tunable things that you get. Different type of shims. This is how it changes the reaction of the vehicle, as well as the arm aggressiveness. You do get a middle aggressive steering. So I'm going to keep building this to box stock specs, the middle steering aggressiveness. And I'm unsure what shims these are. Let's pay special attention to the markings. See how here it's got this little extra piece that has a left on it. So you want to make sure you're putting the left arm on the left side, and it kind of keys in. It actually keys in quite nicely. Just kind of push that into place, and then you put the screw in. That's also kind of a nice part, that if you ever break this, then the arm is separate. How you install these little shims makes a difference. So you could put them in backwards, you could put them in the wrong way. You want to make sure that you have the thin side of this little insert towards the arm. So this is done correctly, where the thin side is toward the arm. But on this one, I actually had it wrong, where I had it like this, and it will let you build it like that. So just pay special attention. You want to make sure that they're matched. This is the first look we get at some bearings, and they seem pretty nice. They're sealed. Seem to be pretty high quality, and here's the rest of the hardware parts that I need to put into these. I do wish they had put the aluminum on the backside too. I did hear that that is an optional upgrade that you can do even on the Elites, is to give it the aluminum on the rear of this as well. That would have been nice to get in the box. Spotted what I think is an error in the manual, where here we've got two TLR 232070s, and over here we have one TLR 232070, but those are different sized. These ones are a lot thinner than this one, and they share the same part number. So it shows that you get two TLR 232070s in the thicker size, and you get 4 in the thinner size, but why do they share the same part number? That's confusing. If you're not watching carefully, you could easily put the wrong shims in, so pay attention to that. For the order of this, you definitely do want to put the bearing in the back first, then you can drop the little shim inside, the spacer, and then you can put the bearing on top. Just like that. That's how you sandwich the 3 pieces in, and then you can add shims in the back, and a screw goes through to the front post. So I'm going to shove the post through. You have to align it, and then 2 shims and a screw, and Loctite it down. The 2 shims on top, and you got to put a little bit of Loctite in, and then you can put the screw in. Let's get these shims aligned again. There we go. Just want to snug it down a little bit, and we have the front axle attached. Doesn't seem very free-flowing though. I think I'm going to have to loosen this off a bit. It doesn't mention to not run it tight. There we go. We've got both the left and the right, and ready to install on the car. Front axle assemblies, I should say. Just watch how tight you're putting this back screw on, because that does affect the resistance of it going through the bearings. So you just want to have it ever just so slightly snug fit, or else if you go down too tight, it does kind of bind this up, and they make no mention of that in the manual. Also, now that these are built, we can see that it is using the top one, the 4mm offset inserts back, which is apparently gives smoother steering off center, but more jacking and rotation deeper into steering throw. Less trail will have more aggressive steering off center and have reduced jacking and deeper rotation. So what is this? I don't know. I'm not familiar with this trail setting. Okay, here we have it again, where we have 2 different sized shims, but with the same part number. Be aware of this, the 33606s, anywhere where it's a washer or shim, they use the same part number even for different thicknesses. Step E2 is building out the rear of this axle assembly. Seems like it's going to be a little bit tricky from a holding on to all the pieces perspective, as you have shims top and bottom. You're going to put this long through, screw the bottom and the shim. Then you have to get your block into place. And then there's another shim that goes on top. These are the thick ones. Get that aligned in there, and then you shove the pin up through. You have to get this long screw pin through both shims and the center block, and then you put a nut on the top. Again, this is something where you don't want to go too tight. I feel like this is binding up a bit. I'm just going to loosen it off. So far I feel like the book is just missing a bunch of the warnings to say don't do things up too tight. I did notice I made a small mistake here where the two shims are supposed to go in through that long pin went, and I had two big shims, so I've now changed it so that this inside area has the proper two shims on it, but it still didn't really free it up any. I was hoping that that would be a little, like, there seems like quite a bit of resistance there. It'll break in over time because this is the steering assembly. It's going to pivot constantly, but I thought that that would be a little bit looser of the factory even after adding the shim. It actually seems like it's made it a little bit stiffer versus, I don't know. I'm going to carry on assuming that this is, they know what this is like and it'll wear in over time, but to me I feel like that should have been a little bit looser for a steering component. Now how this attaches is a little bit different to me. Instead of having one big pin that goes through, it's just sleeved screws on either side. So you want to be careful about how tight you put those in. You want to make sure that those are quite loose so that your suspension moves freely. You want to have it pivot, you know, like a hinge block. You want to make sure that's just staying there because of gravity, but you want to make sure that it's got free play. It's very easy to put these in too tight. You just have to watch your orientation as you do this. You have two holes you could put it in. You want to make sure that you're putting it into the inside hole, as well as there's no shims here for how this attaches to the outer arm. It's just it is what it is. It's very good tolerance though. It feels very well fitted. When you flip it over to do the other side, make sure that you put it in the right hole, because it's easy to just not pay attention. And we just want to put these down just ever so slightly where they just start to reach the end. You don't want to have any pressure pinching this down at all. You want it to be very free. That's the way I was hoping for the uprights it would be too. I wanted it to be this free, but I can't seem to get it there unless I took a shim out. It's possible, but you'd have to change the shims. So yeah, that's how you want it. You just make sure that it's nice and floppy. Next steps seem very simple. All you're doing is you're popping on the links as the links are already made. When you created them earlier, you have two different lengths, and what you want to do for the front ones is the shorts. Short ones in the front are the proper length. If you install the long ones, they are significantly, you would notice this. If you tried to install a long link on the front, you would notice immediately that there's a bit of an alignment problem, so you want to make sure that it's the short links. I'm finding these ball sockets extra challenging to pop on because the whole chassis will pivot as you're trying to apply the pressure to pop them down. And for the front ones up here, you could probably get a big plier on them, but I like to use a retractable screwdriver, and with all the bits retracted, this gives a nice little hollow circular blunt edge to pop ball cups down onto. And I do that a lot, actually. I find it works pretty well. You just have to get it in a spot where you can add enough downward force without the chassis twisting up on you. Also, you want to make sure that you have your little, as you are trying to get leverage, you want to make sure that you haven't messed up your orientation of the alignment of these, where it's got the little score in there. You want to make sure that the score is faced always to the left. Everything moves. That's the problem. Everything moves around too much. There we go. Come on. Oh, those are hard. Those are some tough ball ends. These are called TLR HD ball ends. Now they seem extra tough to get onto the balls. Hopefully they never pop off, but without having the circle in the middle, it does make it a little bit harder to adjust your roll center. If I wanted to add or remove shims underneath there, I would have to pop on and off this ball end all the time. Whereas some other brands, with the hole in the middle, you can get your Allen wrench in there and you can unscrew the whole thing, keeping your turnbuckle on it. And I actually prefer that system better. So if these suck, I would consider upgrading to a ball end that has the circle in the top. Yeah, it is easier to pop it from the outside one first, because it's easier to get leverage on that, and then with everything else connected, you can try and get the inside one on. Okay, done. We have a suspension. Oh, I kind of stuck on that side. Make sure that everything's free. Seems pretty good. Sweet. Carrying on. Step E5 is checking to make sure that you got these steering links built properly. It does give you a second chance to confirm them, and you want to get the orientation of your cups has to be exactly correct. The length has to be exactly correct, because this one is now where you're attaching the bell crank side to the front of the arm for the steering assembly. So this is what I'm talking about. It gives you a last chance to get the alignment of these. You want to get this as close to built, as perfect to the book as possible. You want to have the lengths exactly right, as close as you can be, and have the cups in the proper orientation. So if I was to try and get that where it was perfectly aligned, the ball wouldn't line up in the proper orientation. So this is it. This is the size you want right there. For trying to get this on, I do find it easier to use needle nose pliers to pop these balls on. So definitely change up your tools for what works best. Okay, try and get your ball aligned on there. Pop your needle nose on. Try and not mar the nice aluminum up too much. Boom. Installed. Not on camera. Oh, I was zoomed in way too much. Darn it. Sorry, guys. Now, next step is E6, which is building this front shock tower assembly. And you want to make sure that you watch 3 points of interest here, where when you're building it, you want to make sure that you have the +2 millimeters when you can read it, the long stick should face towards you. So that's how they want you to build it. And then you put 2 nuts on the back. And in order to hold on to this, you do need pretty much a 7 mil long socket on the front long side. And then on the back side, it looks like it's probably a 5 mil, I don't know. Anyway, your box wrench fits it. And you can do these up. Once you've got those front shock posts in place on your front shock tower, all you have to do is bolt them in with 4 screws. 4 machine screws, the M3x10s. You're just going to pop those in, going through the bulkhead. And I'm going to do it in a crosshatch pattern, so I'm going to snug this one down and do it in a cross, and just to make sure that we torque it evenly across all screws. Step E8 is the front bumper assembly, so that needs to just go on the front here where it'll tuck up underneath. Just like that, and then you put a long screw through it all the way up to the front. Is this not supposed to hook under? Yeah, it is. Oh, I spotted something. Hole for this front bumper, you want to make sure that you key it in. So yeah, make sure that you get that under there first. Okay, there's this little hole here, a slot. You want to make sure that your front bumper clicks into that. So I've got to let these off a bit more. They don't even mention that in the book. They're telling me, hey, watch out, there's a hole in the chassis. You gotta slip this in under here first. So you get that right off, tip it in, there. Yep, they should have mentioned that in the book. And those screws on the bottom, they come up through the front wing mount, actually. And so you need this piece, and this is the wing mount that sits into those hex holes, and that's what the screws screw into. It does say to watch out that you don't tighten these too much, because these are just going through there. There's no bite in through any of this sandwich for that screw. It just is a big pin, but it's a full screw. It goes all the way through, and the only thing it's screwing into is the little bit of plastic that's in that front wing mount. So if you do that too tight, it's going to strip out. So be very careful about that. I think that's a little bit of a silly design. What if I decided that I did not want to run the front wing? I still need to have this mount in here all the time, because they don't give you, I guess you could put nuts in. You could drop nuts into that hole. That would be the option. It looks like it's a 5 mil nut, so never mind. After installing the bumper assembly in step E8, we go into step E9. Now this step I'm skipping over because I did not build the shocks yet. The shocks were in bag C, but I decided I'm going to do the shocks at the very end. And so I just installed the hardware on here so I didn't lose it. So that's the shock bushing, plastic, the end nut, and the screw that holds the bottom in. As the front shocks go through the middle of the A-arm, so I just partially installed the screw that holds those in, and then we'll move on to the next step. So here we go, front end is now done. This will likely be starting to build the rear end assembly. Oh, actually it has you jumping onto the transmission next. Interesting. I thought we would start building the rear end, but it shows you here, look, you've finished the chassis and the front end, and now you're moving on to the transmissions. At this point the front end is done. I do still find that it's not as free of a steering system as I would like. So if you give it a reasonable amount of droop, then the steering assembly, it still feels a little stiff, and I feel like it's all because of this assembly here, where that pin screw goes all the way up through to that little nut, and it's got those shims in it. I think I might play with that later, but for now I'm just going to keep going with the build. But this action here is what binds it up. You've got really nice aluminum bell cranks that came in the Elite kit, and the arms itself are nice and free, but it's the steering motion that feels a little stiff to me. The nice thing is that there's like zero slop in the steering. It's very accurate. Like any kind of an input is going directly out to the wheel, so that's excellent. That might be why it's a little bit stiffer than I'm used to, is because it has no slop in it, but I still feel like that mechanism should be a little bit freer to move.